Hey guys, this is Section 2, Chapter 1, Basic JavaScript for Ruff. First, before our lecture, I'll tell you why this class is needed. As you know, the main development language of Ruff is JavaScript. However, it does not mean you must be very familiar with all the syntaxes of JavaScript, and then develop Ruff. In fact, in Ruff app development, some GS in use or knowledge points are also quite limited. So, I will just list all the frequently used items and then briefly introduce them to you. The purpose is to enable those who previously know little about JavaScript to, after listening to this lecture, develop with Ruff. Well, all the knowledge points can be roughly divided into 5 categories. The first one is the basic data types, and the second one is callback function, its definition and some usages. The third one is some common functions of timer. The fourth one is the required mechanisms, and the fifth one is the JSON file, its format and usage. Next, let's go through each point. Firstly, JavaScript is a language with dynamic data types. So what does that mean? Let's look at an example on the right. Well, I've defined a variable temp. To start with, I copy it into such a string, hello. Next, I copy it again into a number, 1, 2, 3. Finally, I copy it into such a Boolean type true. They're all acceptable. That's to say, the same variable can be copied into data of different types. Secondly, about the array. Arrays exist in almost all the languages. It roughly means from 0 to n minus 1, then accessing n variables. On the right is one instance. Here, I define temp, such a variable in an array. Then I copy it into A, B, C, and then print it. Thirdly, objects in JavaScript are an important data type in the JavaScript language. There's an example as well. I define a temp, and then makes it such a null object. So in this object, I first need to add some key value pairs into it. Here, I've added 2 key value pairs. K is name, and its value. Key value pair K is H, and its value is 25. And I print it and see this. Next is about the callback function. Before we talk about this callback function, let me briefly tell you about synchronous operation and asynchronous operation. Since the callback function is unique to asynchronous operation, to start with, there's an example to show some differences between synchronous operation and asynchronous operation. This example actually means I want to read a file and read its contents. Then I need to do something. Let's look at the method of synchronous operation first. That's to say, when I define a variable content, it is equal to such an operation, read file, and then the entire program will block here, and then wait whether reading is successful. If successful, I get the content, and I can do something else. And then let's look at the mode of asynchronous operation. First, I call such an API, read file, followed by the mode, content, such a function. It means this asynchronous operation has already been started, and when you successfully read it, you must enter this function. After the entire asynchronous operation is successfully triggered, you may actually execute some statements after read file. When the reading operation is completed, it will enter the callback function. Well, next, as developers, how should we define a callback function, and how should we use it? There is an example below. That's to say, I realized a function of asynchronous addition. The third one is the common functions of timer. Since JavaScript is a language of asynchronous operation, in this language, it's impossible to use such a function like sleep or delay, as all the operations are asynchronous. When we need waiting or polling, which takes time, we need to use some timer functions. Let's focus on 2 common functions. One is the delay function, and the other one is cyclic function. The delay function is setTimeout, and the cyclic function is setInterval. Both functions have almost identical parameters. 2 parameters. One is callback, the other is the time of delay, in a unit of millisecond. Look at a case of setTimeout first. Well, I'd like to achieve such an effect. Print a hello Ruff in 1 minute. Its method of use, as you see, is like this. As for the cyclic function, as we see to achieve a desired purpose. For example, print a hello Ruff every 1 second and stop this task in 5 seconds. This case is like this. In this picture, the fourth is the required mechanism. Well, what does the required mechanism aim to achieve? And that is, we can, in our own module, quote other modules, and we may also prepare a universal module for others to use. To be exact, it is a mechanism of module importing. Similarly, there's an example. It defines a module first. It defines two contents. One is an API, print hello. The other one defines a variable, num. In this module, I expose both. The code below is a code to quote this module. It's such a case to require it. And then I directly call module.printhhello, a method to directly call this module. Then when I call module.num, I will directly quote the data. The last one is the JSON file. Well, in fact, the JSON file is a very important thing in JavaScript. It's mainly used to store information. It defines a file format. If you're familiar with XML, in fact, the effects of JSON file and XML are similar. For example, to store some information. However, compared with XML, its upsides may be more obvious, since it's smaller, faster, and quite easy to parse. Next, I define a JSON file and see how to use it. You may have a look. First, in file defining, I define a series of key value pairs. When it is used, I may click such a mode to gradually get its value. Alright, so that's all for this lesson. So please look forward to our upcoming classes on Ruff. Thank you very much.
Ruff, make IoT easier.